Everything changed the moment one quiet offseason plan came to light. Because while millions of fans believed the Lakers were focused on keeping one legendary era alive, the organization was already preparing for an entirely different future. The biggest surprise wasn't a blockbuster trade or a dramatic press conference. It was the revelation that Luka Doncic's top priorities for the franchise never centered on bringing LeBron James back. And that discovery has completely changed how fans are looking at the Lakers' direction. Now the basketball world is asking one question: was this transformation happening behind the scenes all along? As reports began surfacing, pieces of a much larger puzzle suddenly started fitting together, and the picture they created was nothing like anyone expected. The Lakers weren't simply making random off-season moves. They were carefully checking off a list that had reportedly been discussed with their new franchise centerpiece long before free agency reached full speed. According to multiple reports, Luka had two major desires for the roster: keep Austin Reaves beside him and bring in an elite rim-protecting center who could perfectly complement his style of play. Those requests may sound simple at first, but they reveal exactly how Luka sees championship basketball. Instead of chasing the biggest celebrity names, the focus shifted toward chemistry, balance, defense, and players who naturally elevate his game every possession. That philosophy immediately separated this offseason from previous Lakers summers, where nearly every conversation revolved around superstar headlines rather than basketball fit. Then came the first domino. Austin Reaves stayed. For many fans, that move looked like another routine contract decision, but insiders suggested it carried much deeper meaning. Luka reportedly viewed Reaves as the ideal long-term backcourt partner, someone whose shooting, decision-making, and willingness to play without dominating the ball made him a perfect complement. While countless rumors connected the Lakers to massive superstar scenarios, keeping Reaves reportedly remained one of Luka's biggest priorities. Suddenly, the front office wasn't simply protecting a valuable player. They were protecting a partnership they believed could define the next generation of Lakers basketball. But that wasn't the only mission quietly unfolding, because another glaring weakness had haunted Los Angeles throughout the previous season. The Lakers desperately needed size, rim protection, and a true interior anchor capable of finishing pick-and-roll plays while defending the paint at an elite level. That missing piece became impossible to ignore after painful defensive stretches exposed just how vulnerable the roster could become against bigger, more physical opponents. Instead of ignoring the problem, management reportedly attacked it directly, leading to one of the franchise's most aggressive roster upgrades. Walker Kessler quickly emerged as the answer. His ability to block shots, rebound aggressively, protect the rim, and thrive alongside an elite playmaker checked nearly every box the Lakers were searching for. Even more importantly, those qualities reportedly aligned perfectly with Luka's vision for the team's future. Reports soon indicated Luka was genuinely excited after seeing both of his biggest roster wishes addressed during free agency. That's where the story suddenly became far more fascinating, because one topic many expected to dominate those conversations was surprisingly absent. Re-signing LeBron James reportedly wasn't one of the priorities being emphasized during these roster-building discussions. For longtime NBA fans, that revelation landed like a massive twist. After all, LeBron had defined the Lakers for years, delivered a championship, and remained one of basketball's greatest icons. Yet behind closed doors, the organization's planning reportedly centered on constructing a younger core capable of competing for years rather than preserving the previous era. It wasn't necessarily about disrespect. It was about direction. Every franchise eventually reaches the moment where yesterday's foundation gives way to tomorrow's blueprint, and many now believe the Lakers quietly crossed that line much earlier than anyone realized. But what happened next made the entire situation even more dramatic, because reports suggested this wasn't a last-minute adjustment triggered by free agency. The groundwork had reportedly been discussed long before the summer officially began, raising an even bigger question that few fans were asking at the time. Exactly when did the Lakers decide Luka Doncic would become the unquestioned face of the franchise? And what was said during those private meetings that completely reshaped the future of one of basketball's most famous organizations? That question opened the door to an even deeper story. Because once the Lakers committed to building around Luka Doncic, every decision suddenly had to pass one simple test. Would it make the team stronger around its new centerpiece? That shift changed the entire evaluation process inside the organization. Veterans, role players, future draft assets, and potential trade targets were no longer being viewed in isolation. Every move became part of one connected blueprint designed to maximize Luka's strengths over the next several seasons. Front office executives reportedly understood that Luka performs at his best when surrounded by reliable shooters, intelligent cutters, and athletic defenders capable of covering ground without demanding constant touches. That formula has followed him throughout his career, and the Lakers appeared determined to recreate it on one of the NBA's biggest stages. Rather than chasing headlines, the focus turned toward basketball fit, roster balance, and long-term sustainability. For fans used to seeing Los Angeles dominate off-season conversations with superstar rumors, the quieter approach almost felt unusual. But beneath the surface, it reflected a completely different strategy. Every roster spot suddenly carried greater importance because each player had to contribute to a system instead of simply adding another recognizable name. That is where Austin Reaves became even more valuable. His willingness to move without the ball, attack closeouts, create secondary offense, and knock down perimeter shots gives Luka another trusted decision-maker without creating unnecessary overlap. Chemistry like that cannot simply be purchased overnight. It develops through complementary skill sets and shared responsibilities. The Lakers appeared to recognize that reality before many outside observers did. Then attention shifted toward the defensive end, an area that often determines whether talented teams become true championship contenders. Adding interior protection wasn't just about blocking shots. It was about allowing perimeter defenders to play more aggressively, forcing opponents into difficult decisions, and giving Luka the freedom to conserve energy for orchestrating the offense. A dependable rim protector changes the geometry of every possession. Driving lanes shrink, contested shots increase, and transition opportunities begin to appear. Those small advantages accumulate over the course of an entire season. That's why the reported pursuit of a defensive anchor carried significance far beyond the box score. It represented an investment in a complete identity rather than a temporary fix. But the biggest twist was still coming. Because as analysts dissected these reported priorities, another realization began spreading across the basketball world. The Lakers weren't simply assembling a roster for next season. They were signaling what kind of team they intend to become for years ahead. Youth, continuity, versatility, and roster flexibility suddenly appeared to outweigh nostalgia. That realization sparked passionate debates everywhere. Some fans praised the organization for embracing the future before it was too late, while others questioned whether moving away from an era defined by LeBron James could ever happen without emotional consequences. Both sides had compelling arguments, making every new report fuel another wave of discussion. Meanwhile, Luka found himself at the center of nearly every conversation without making dramatic public declarations. His reported preferences spoke through basketball logic rather than emotional headlines, creating an entirely different atmosphere around the franchise. Instead of demanding flashy acquisitions, the focus remained on players who could elevate winning habits across an 82-game season and deep into the playoffs. That subtle difference may ultimately become one of the defining themes of this new chapter. Still, one enormous question refuses to disappear. If the Lakers have truly embraced Luka as the cornerstone of their future, how will that affect every remaining roster decision as expectations continue to rise? The answer could reshape not only the franchise's championship hopes, but the balance of power across the entire Western Conference. That possibility is exactly why league executives are watching every Lakers move so closely. Because when one of basketball's most iconic franchises changes direction, the ripple effects spread across the entire NBA. Rival teams aren't just evaluating the Lakers' current roster anymore. They're trying to predict the next step before it happens. If Los Angeles truly commits to a Luka first timeline, every future trade, contract extension, and draft decision suddenly carries much greater significance. One successful move could accelerate the rebuild into an immediate championship race, while one mistake could delay the vision for years. That's the pressure that comes with building around a generational talent. Luka has already proven he can elevate teammates, control the pace of a game, and create offense against virtually any defense. Now the challenge shifts from finding a superstar to constructing the perfect ecosystem around him. History has shown that championships aren't won by talent alone. They're won when every piece fits together at the right moment. That reality explains why the Lakers reportedly emphasize complementary players instead of simply collecting famous names. The organization appears to believe that depth, versatility, and defensive stability will have a greater impact than another headline-grabbing acquisition. It's a philosophy that demands patience, but it also creates a clearer long-term identity. Of course, none of this erases the enormous legacy of LeBron James. His influence on the franchise is secure, his accomplishments are undeniable, and his championship run will always be remembered as one of the defining chapters in Lakers history. But professional sports have never stood still. Every dynasty eventually reaches the point where one era gives way to another. The difficult part isn't recognizing that moment. It's having the courage to act on it before the rest of the league catches up. That's why these off-season reports generated so much attention. They weren't simply about one player's preferences. They hinted at a complete organizational shift. Fans began reading between the lines, searching for clues in every roster move, every front office decision, and every public comment. Suddenly, routine transactions felt connected to a much larger strategy. Even the smallest personnel decisions started looking like pieces of a carefully designed puzzle rather than isolated events. Then another layer entered the conversation: expectations. Building around Luka doesn't just create excitement, it also raises the standard immediately. Every loss will invite criticism, every playoff exit will trigger questions, and every offseason will be judged by whether the front office continues delivering the right supporting cast. That's the price of becoming the face of one of the NBA's biggest franchises. There is no slow climb when you're wearing a Lakers jersey. Every season is measured against championship banners. That reality makes the reported off-season priorities even more fascinating because they suggest the organization is thinking beyond short-term headlines and focusing on sustained contention. Whether that approach ultimately succeeds will depend on chemistry, health, development, and execution once the games begin. On paper, the vision appears logical, but championships are decided on the hardwood, not in off-season meetings. Still, one thing is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. The Lakers appear determined to write the next chapter with Luka Doncic leading the story, and every move from this point forward will be viewed through that lens. If the reported plan delivers the results the franchise believes it can, this offseason may eventually be remembered as the moment the torch quietly passed from one legendary era to the next. And only time will reveal whether that gamble becomes one of the smartest decisions in Lakers history or the move that changed everything forever. If you enjoyed this update, let us know your thoughts in the comments. And stay tuned, because the next twist in the Lakers' journey could arrive when everyone least expects it.